What's the first thing you learned about the plague? Was it how horrible it was? Did you learn about its aftermath? What about its cause? If you were like me, you probably learned about all three. But there is one aspect of the Black Death that most people don't know about. It might be the most important part of this terrible story, and yet it's never taught in schools. This is the hidden side of the plague they never taught you. It was so painful for the survivors to relive the nightmare of the Black Death. They didn't want to talk about it, let alone remember it, so they buried their memories deep inside themselves and moved on. We can't blame them because it was truly a terrible time. After all, almost half of Europe had perished. England lost 35 million people, Italy 25 million, and France 17 million. Even though the entire world had around 350 million people back then, that means that 1 out of every 6 people had died from the Black Death. You can call it the worst natural selection in human history. So when the survivors started to rebuild their lives, they tried to forget everything about the pandemic. However, we can't just ignore this dark chapter in human history. We should take a closer look at the past to see how we came to be who we are today. After all, we live in a world full of pandemics. We've had the Spanish flu after World War I and the COVID-19 pandemic recently. Hopefully, these will be the last major pandemics in our lifetime. But we can't bank on it. That's why we need to learn from history to better ourselves. As such, here is the hidden part of the Black Death that nobody remembers. During World War II, Alan Turing and his team cracked the Enigma code. This breakthrough helped end the war earlier than expected and may have saved millions of lives. But what was the Enigma code and why is it so important? Let's go back in time to the beginning of World War II and find out. At the start of World War II, Germany and its allies controlled a big part of Europe. Meanwhile, Great Britain stood strong, protecting the British Empire all over the world. For Germany, this was a big problem because it wanted to expand its territory and power. It looked like if it attacked Great Britain, the empire would come crashing down. But Germany knew that attacking Britain wouldn't be easy. Britain had one of the strongest navies in the world and a lot of allies. It would cost a lot of time, money, and resources to fight against them. In fact, Hitler considered invading Britain during the war, but he quickly dismissed the idea. He was aware that fighting against the Royal Navy would be almost impossible. Luckily for Germany, it didn't have to do that because it had the Enigma code. In 1932, Germany began using the Enigma code to encrypt messages between its naval forces. The Enigma machine could produce billions of different combinations, which made it nearly impossible to crack. German commanders believed that this gave them an upper hand against the British and allowed them to carry out surprise attacks. For example, they used it to communicate battle plans, personal information, and military orders. This caused a big headache for the British. They wanted to read the German messages, but they had no idea how. Luckily for them, a Polish mathematician named Marian Rejewski had already come up with a way to decode the Enigma machine before the war. After Poland was invaded by Germany, he fled to France, where he shared his knowledge with the British and French intelligence. This kick-started Britain's effort to break the Enigma code. In charge of the project was Alan Turing. He was a brilliant mathematician, but he struggled at first because the Enigma machine was too complicated to crack. At the time, computers hadn't been invented yet, so Turing and his team had to build a machine that could decode the encrypted messages. They called it the Bomba. The new machine was able to test thousands of possibilities at lightning speed. All they needed to do was plug the message they wanted to decipher, and it would instantly show the answer. This was a huge development because it meant that the impossible was now possible. Turing and his team worked hard to improve the bomb machine and its efficiency. They eventually created a massive network of bomb machines that could decode any Enigma message in a matter of hours. This wasn't the end, though. Turing and his team continued to refine the bomb machine until it became smaller and faster. Unfortunately, though, the British government didn't see the importance of cracking the Enigma code right away. They thought that a direct attack on Britain was still unlikely, and that the Enigma machine would remain secure for many years. As such, they didn't give Turing and his team enough resources to do the job properly. But soon enough, they would regret this decision. In 1941, Germany declared war on the Soviet Union. This meant that Germany was now fighting against both the British and Soviets. And suddenly, the Enigma machine was everywhere. The German army used it to communicate with each other, with their allies, and even with the civilians. It was clear that the British needed to get their hands on the Enigma code. Otherwise, the war would drag on forever. They finally realized how important it was to have the bomb machine and gave Turing everything he needed to create more of them. In the meantime, Germany kept developing newer and more complex versions of the Enigma code. But it was nothing for Turing's bomb machine. Each day, Turing and his team were able to decipher hundreds of German messages, giving the British a huge advantage on the battlefield. However, they were still far behind. It would take months for the bomb machine to decipher the latest version of the Enigma code. By then, Germany would have already known about the attack and prepared itself. This was a frustrating setback for Turing and his team, but they didn't give up. They worked tirelessly to find a way to stay ahead of the Germans. Eventually, they came up with a new method that involved using the captured Enigma machines to predict what the Germans would do next. With this new method, the British were able to stay one step ahead of the Germans for most of the war. This gave them a huge advantage that helped them win several important battles, including the Battle of Britain. Historians say that Turing and his team may have shortened the war by 2 years, saving millions of lives. Sadly, though, Turing's work remained classified for many years after the war. He was only given recognition in the 1990s, long after he had passed away. But what would you have done if you were in Turing's shoes? Do you think you could have cracked the Enigma code? Let us know in the comments below. Also, can you imagine a world without computers or the internet? Without Turing, that might have been our reality. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to hit subscribe to join our ever-growing community. And don't forget to leave a like to help the algorithm and promoting more of our historical tales. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.